I'm getting more and more intrigued by mindset because I used to think of it as fluffy, like self-help, and now I think of it more as strategy. What's your strategy in life? Somebody asked me on Instagram after I posted this, Gary, if the mindset has been skewed, how can you bring it back? And I answered with, by surrounding yourself with people who have the mindset you aspire to. My friends, please understand that mindset is controllable in the same way that all our opinions are controllable. The key is to add more people with optimism and cut people with negativity. It's very, very simple. Now, it's very hard to cut people with pessimism, cynicism, and negativity when they are the people that are the closest to you, parents, siblings, spouse. But the bottom line is, if you're asking the question, I'm gonna give you the answer. The answer is add more people with positivity and optimism and cut people with pessimism and cynicism. Who you surround yourself matters. What content you consume matters. I basically suffocate myself for a long period of my time and created an environment that was based on offense and optimism, and now I know no different. Please do the same for you. Make that move. Mold, and I mean mold, your mindset by what you consume and with whom you consume it.
I was known for doing a lot of things, and part of that was that I had learned early on, you know, when I was working at McDonald's, like, okay, James, nobody is, except your teacher, is saying you should do this. You know, I mean, you should take this chance on yourself. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna just believe in myself. I gotta work really, really hard. I gotta show everyone that I am supposed to be doing this. And then 2 or 3 years later, I was on Freaks and Geeks. And so I learned from that experience, like, oh, if you work hard at something, that's how you get better. Like any athlete, you know, if they are professional, they've practiced, right? You're not gonna find anybody in professional sports that's like, nope, I never practiced. I'm a natural, you know? Like, people have natural talent, but they work at it. And so part of me, you know, directing so many things and doing all that was like, oh, I just want the experience and doing that. And, you know, a lot of those movies, I'm happy with most of them, but, you know, some are more successful than others in different ways. But a lot of that was, I think, getting experience. And, you know, I get to direct on the Deuce now. And, I don't think I would have been able to direct an HBO show, especially for David Simon, if I didn't have all that experience behind me.
Things go wrong. They always seem to happen at once, and they just compound on top of each other. And it's pretty easy sometimes to feel beaten when you're faced with all those issues and all those problems, and they all hit you at the same time. But let me tell you, that doesn't mean give up. In fact, it means the opposite. It means it's time for you to fight harder, to dig in. It means it's time for you to go on the warpath. And that starts with one of the fundamental laws of combat leadership: prioritize and execute. What's the biggest problem? What's causing the most stress? Family? Okay, sit them down. Explain where you are at. Be blunt, be upfront, and then give them the simple plan of how you're gonna get things back on track. Don't sugarcoat it. You give it to them straight. Next, you got some late payments. Call those creditors up. Explain to them what's going on. Set up some kind of a minimum payment plan so you can start making some progress and get them off your back. And then you got your job. Right? You're falling behind at work. Okay, talk to your boss. Face it. Tell him that you're going to step up your game. Tell him you're going to be at work early, you're going to be at work late, you're going to be at work during lunch, you're going to be wherever you need to be whenever he needs you to be there. Tell him you're going to get after it. And tell him that you're 100% committed to supporting him and the company and the mission. And then you get started.
No matter where you are in life, you can take the lid off of your job. And if you're wondering if you still have the lid on in your life, here are some clues that's going to let you know that the lid is still on. If you're not excited about waking up in the morning, if you're sitting around bored out of your mind, if you got time to do everything anybody asks you to do, you probably got the lid on. If when you tell your dreams to all your friends, it makes sense to them, you got your lid on, man. Your dreams should not make sense to everybody. You gotta say something that make people go, how you gonna do that? That's when you got the lid off. And if I were you, I'd do that. I'd take the lid off. Makes sense to me, don't it?
Most people have goals in life. We've been brought to think you gotta be goal-oriented. That's the first mistake. Yes, you need goals, but there's something far beyond goals, which is what all successful people have, and that's a vision. It's a vision for the future. See, here's it is. You see things as they are, but not worse than they are.
Yeah.
Which is what a lot of people do.
Yeah.
They say, oh, it's so terrible. They tell themselves this wild story about why they can't take action. And in truth, the story they tell themselves is exactly what holds them back from being successful.
Great.
It's that bullshit story that stops them from acting. Like, there's so the economy, and they play the blame game, they complain, they justify, and it stops them from moving forward. So see things as they are, not worse than they are,
Yep.
and then see them better than they are,
Yep.
and make them that way. Look at a Gandhi, right? He survived hunger strikes and united a country, not because he had a goal for a free India, he had a vision of a free India. Nelson Mandela, all those years in jail, a vision.
Yeah.
It's Richard Branson, who's a friend of mine, who I know he sponsors me, my speaking tour. He's a visionary. Bill Gates, they're all visionaries. And the best example, considering we're in Hollywood, is a guy like James Cameron. Now, here's the trap. James Cameron is probably the greatest visionary of all time in filmmaking. Would you agree?
Yeah,
He was interviewed on Diane Sawyer, and they asked him a question of, what do you owe your success to? And what he said was this: I set really, really high goals. So even if I fall short, I'm still doing great. And people thought that was pretty profound, and I actually believe in that too. It's not true though. See, what's happening is this: James Cameron is not a goal setter, he's a visionary. He just doesn't realize because he's running an unconscious strategy himself. If you said, if I said that James Cameron was really just the goals, look, you have a vision for Avatar. He'd say, oh, of course I will. And he'd get all excited. He'd tell you how nothing was going to stop him from making this movie. The fact that it took 10 years and ran $200 million over budget, and he put money in himself, that's not what goal setters do. Goal setters will set a goal, gets tough, and they abandon it. And I can't overemphasize that distinction. That's number one, is vision.
What drives you to keep working so hard? You and I are in the 60s category. And so when you're in your 60s, you've lived more than you're going to live, realistically. So when you realize you've lived more than you're going to live, you can say, why not relax a little bit? Why not just ease up? Why have you decided to even work harder than you did before?
Because I think, David, that everybody, the thing that works for me all these years, whether it was the magazine, or which I still have, or whether it was the show, I understood that there's a common denominator in the human experience. And I want the same thing you want, which is the same thing you want and you want. What we all want is to be able to live out the truest, highest expression of ourselves as a human being. That doesn't end until you take your last breath. What is the truest, highest vision that you hold for yourself? No matter where you are in your life, there's always the next level. There's always the next level to the last breath. So I feel that I always knew that I would be done with the show when I felt like, I've said as much as I could say here on this platform. And then how will I be used? If there were a theme song to my life, Amazing Grace would be one of them, and Keep On Using Me Till You Use Me Up would be another one. You know that Bill Withers song? So I feel that until you have used your value as a human being, you're not done.
Do you feel like
growing up in projects gave you a certain edge as an entrepreneur others don't have.
Yeah, especially in Silicon Valley. I feel like folks just don't have as much hustle as I kind of was raised with. You know, when I moved out there for the first time, it just felt like everything was moving way slower, right? And I think, you know, the way that I articulated it, once I got to business school, someone told me this that really stuck with me for a long time. He said, Tristan, while a lot of your classmates are willing to ask why 5 times, you're always willing to ask it 6 times, right? And that hustle was really kind of ingrained in me from the very beginning. So now in Silicon Valley, like literally everything just moves way slower, and I don't know what it is, but I think it was an important part of like who I am now as an entrepreneur.